At 5:04 a.m. on October 21st, 2024, a 15-year-old boy placed a 911 call that would shock the Pacific Northwest. His voice steady, almost rehearsed, he reported finding his parents and 3 siblings shot dead in their Fall City, Washington home. He claimed his 13-year-old brother had killed the family before taking his own life. But within hours, detectives would uncover a truth far more disturbing. The caller himself had systematically executed his entire family while they slept, sparing only his 11-year-old sister who played dead in a pool of her own blood. What makes this case particularly chilling isn't just the brutality. It's the calculated deception that followed. This teenager, whose name remains protected due to his age, didn't simply commit murder. He orchestrated an elaborate cover-up, staged a crime scene, and delivered an Oscar-worthy performance to first responders. Even more unsettling, just days before the massacre, teachers had praised him as an exemplary student. Neighbors called the family perfect. No one saw this coming. Welcome to today's deep dive into one of 2024's most disturbing cases of familicide. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, because what you're about to learn will fundamentally challenge how you view the warning signs of violence in your own community. Fall City sits just 25 miles east of Seattle, a quiet community of about 2,000 residents where everyone knows everyone. The kind of place where kids ride bikes until dark and neighbors actually talk to each other. The family lived in a modest home on a 5-acre lot, surrounded by towering evergreens and the peaceful sounds of rural Washington. The father, 43, worked in electrical engineering. The mother, 42, homeschooled their 5 children. They were fixtures at the local grocery store, community events, and their church. Just 2 weeks before the murders, they'd hosted a neighborhood barbecue. Multiple witnesses would later tell investigators the same thing. They seemed so happy. The 15-year-old perpetrator was, by all accounts, the ideal eldest son. Responsible, intelligent, helpful with his younger siblings. He'd recently transitioned from homeschooling to public high school, where teachers immediately noticed his academic prowess. His algebra teacher would later tell investigators, "He was one of my brightest students, always polite, always prepared." But there was something else about this teenager that no one recognized at the time, an ability to compartmentalize that would later be described by forensic psychologists as extraordinary for someone his age. While maintaining perfect grades and a spotless reputation, he was simultaneously planning the complete annihilation of his family. The victims included his father, mother, and 3 siblings aged 13, 9, and 7. Each had their own interests, their own dreams. The 13-year-old loved robotics and had just won a regional science fair. The 9-year-old was obsessed with horses and had been promised riding lessons for her upcoming birthday. The youngest, just 7, still believed in Santa Claus and had already started his Christmas list. What could drive a 15-year-old to destroy everything and everyone he'd grown up with? Let me know in the comments what you think could push someone this young to commit such an unthinkable act. The relationship between the teenager and his family appeared normal, even loving, to outside observers. Home videos from just months before show him helping his younger siblings with homework, laughing at family dinners, participating in game nights. There was no history of reported abuse, no calls to child protective services, no documented mental health crises. Yet investigators would later discover a pattern of behavior that, in hindsight, revealed careful planning. The teenager had been researching firearms for months, using incognito browsers and deleting his search history. He'd studied his father's gun safe, memorizing the combination through patient observation. Most disturbing of all, he'd been testing his family's sleep patterns, noting what time each person typically fell into deep sleep. The timeline leading to October 21st reads like a slow-motion tragedy. 6 months before the murders, the teenager began exhibiting subtle changes. He became more withdrawn during family activities, though not enough to raise serious concerns. He started keeping a journal, later discovered hidden in his room, where he wrote about feeling disconnected and playing a character in his daily life. 3 months before the murders, he convinced his parents to let him take a firearms safety course. They saw it as responsible behavior from their mature eldest son. The instructor would later recall, He was an excellent student, very focused on safety protocols, especially proper storage and handling. No one realized he was gathering intelligence. 1 month before the murders, the family took a camping trip to Lake Chelan. Photos from that trip show smiling faces around a campfire, the teenager helping his youngest brother roast marshmallows. A family friend who joined them for one night later told investigators, "They were the family everyone wanted to be. The kids all got along so well." 2 weeks before October 21st, the teenager submitted an English essay about the theme of masks in literature. His teacher gave it an A+, commenting on his sophisticated understanding of how people hide their true selves. The bitter irony of that comment would haunt her for months. On October 20th, the day before the murders, the family attended Sunday church service. Multiple congregants remembered seeing them, describing a normal, happy family. That evening, they had dinner together, homemade pizza, the 7-year-old's favorite. The teenager helped clean up as usual. He even played video games with his 13-year-old brother until about 10 p.m. What happened next was pieced together through forensic evidence, the surviving sister's testimony, and the perpetrator's eventual confession. At approximately 3 a.m. on October 21st, the teenager retrieved his father's Glock handgun from the safe. He'd practiced this motion dozens of times when alone in the house. He loaded the weapon with ammunition he'd hidden weeks earlier, then proceeded to his parents' bedroom. The forensic evidence showed both parents were shot while sleeping. They likely never woke up. The medical examiner would later note the precise placement of shots, indicating the shooter knew exactly where to aim for instant fatality. This wasn't rage or panic. This was execution. The teenager then moved systematically through the house. The 9-year-old in her princess-themed bedroom. The 7-year-old surrounded by superhero posters. Each child was shot in their sleep, in their own beds, in what should have been the safest place in their world. When he entered the bedroom shared by his 13-year-old brother and 11-year-old sister, something went differently. The shot that killed the 13-year-old woke the 11-year-old. In her later testimony, she described pretending to be asleep as her eldest brother stood over her. She felt the gun pointed at her head. She held her breath, waiting. Then, for reasons that remain unclear, he shot her, but the bullet only grazed her neck and hand. Whether by miracle or miscalculation, she survived. She continued playing dead as he left the room, holding perfectly still in her bed for what she estimated was 15 to 20 minutes. Think about that for a moment. An 11-year-old child, wounded and traumatized, having the presence of mind to remain motionless while her brother moved through the house. What would you have done in that situation? Share your thoughts below. After completing the murders, the teenager began his cover-up. He placed the gun in his 13-year-old brother's hand. He adjusted bodies to support his planned narrative. He even created fake evidence of an argument between siblings. Then he waited. At 5:04 a.m., he called 911. The recording of that call is perhaps the most chilling piece of evidence in the entire case. His voice is calm, controlled, with perfectly timed emotional breaks. "I think my brother shot my family," he told the dispatcher. "I was in the bathroom when I heard gunshots." He provided detailed information, answered every question, even expressed appropriate confusion and grief. When asked if anyone might be alive, he said he'd checked and, "They're all gone." He hadn't counted on his sister's survival instinct. As sirens wailed toward the house, the 11-year-old girl made a decision that would crack the entire case open. She climbed out her bedroom window, wounded, barefoot in her pajamas, and ran to a neighbor's house. When that neighbor opened the door to a blood-covered child at 5:15 a.m., they immediately called 911. "There's been a shooting," the girl told responding officers. "My brother did it. The one who called you." The investigation that followed revealed layer upon layer of deception. Detectives found the teenager's hidden journal, filled with entries about feeling empty and performing for others. They discovered his extensive research on familicides, including detailed notes on cases like Mason Sisk, the Alabama teenager who killed 5 family members in 2019. During his initial interview, the 15-year-old maintained his story with remarkable consistency. He cried at appropriate moments, expressed shock and confusion, even suggested reasons why his brother might have snapped. Detectives noted his unusual composure for someone who'd supposedly just discovered his murdered family. But physical evidence told a different story. Gunshot residue patterns didn't match his version of events. The angle of shots indicated a taller shooter than the 13-year-old brother. Most damning of all, security footage from a neighbor's camera showed movement patterns in the house that contradicted his timeline. When confronted with his sister's survival and testimony, the teenager's facade finally cracked. In a recorded confession that prosecutors would later describe as disturbingly matter-of-fact, he admitted to planning and executing the murders. He showed no emotion as he walked investigators through each step, each shot, each decision. What emerged during psychological evaluations was a portrait of extreme compartmentalization. The teenager described living two separate lives. One as the perfect son and student, another as someone consumed by violent fantasies. He claimed he felt nothing during the murders, comparing it to watching someone else do it. Dr. Catherine Ramsland, a forensic psychologist who reviewed the case, noted similarities to other teenage family annihilators. These individuals often display what we call a mask of sanity, she explained. They've learned to mimic appropriate emotions and behaviors while feeling profoundly disconnected from others. The teenager's ability to maintain his facade was remarkable even by the standards of juvenile killers. Unlike cases involving obvious mental illness or explosive rage, this was calculated patient evil hiding behind the face of a child. He'd fooled teachers, neighbors, church members, even his own family. Statistical analysis of familicide cases reveals disturbing patterns. According to FBI data, 71% of family annihilators have no prior criminal record. They're often described as good kids or model citizens before their crimes. The very normalcy that makes them trusted is what enables their violence. What makes juvenile familicide particularly rare and particularly disturbing is the combination of youth and calculation. Most teenage violence is impulsive, driven by poor emotional regulation and underdeveloped prefrontal cortexes. But cases like this one and Mason Sisk's demonstrate that some juveniles are capable of adult-level planning and deception. The legal proceedings that followed sparked intense debate about juvenile justice. Despite the heinous nature of the crimes, the perpetrator's age meant he would be tried in juvenile court unless prosecutors could successfully argue for adult charges. The surviving sister's testimony became crucial not just for establishing facts, but for demonstrating the calculated nature of the crimes. During pretrial hearings, the teenager appeared in court looking exactly like what he was, a suburban high school student. Clean-cut, polite, attentive. Gallery observers later described feeling disturbed by how normal he looked. One said, "You expect a monster. You get a kid who looks like he should be in algebra class." The prosecution presented evidence of extensive premeditation. Beyond the journal entries and internet searches, they revealed he'd practiced with the weapon at a local range, telling instructors he was interested in competitive shooting. He'd studied the house layout, timing his attack for maximum efficiency. This wasn't a snap decision, it was a campaign. The defense faced an impossible task. How do you defend someone who admitted to murdering their family in cold blood? They focused on age, brain development, and the possibility of rehabilitation. They brought in experts to testify about juvenile psychology and the potential for change. But how do you rehabilitate someone capable of killing their parents and siblings while they slept? Public opinion was divided. Some saw a deeply disturbed child who needed help. Others saw a calculating killer who'd forfeited any claim to sympathy. The surviving sister's family advocated for the harshest possible sentence, stating, "He stole everything from us. He doesn't deserve mercy he never showed them." What do you think? Can someone who commits such acts as a teenager ever truly be rehabilitated? Or are some crimes simply unforgivable regardless of age? Let me know your perspective in the comments. The case was ultimately moved to adult court, where the teenager was convicted on 5 counts of aggravated murder. The judge, in a lengthy sentencing statement, noted the extraordinary callousness of the crimes and the sophisticated deception that followed. The teenager was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, a controversial decision given his age. The 11-year-old survivor, now in protective custody with extended family, faces a lifetime of trauma. Imagine surviving not just a mass shooting, but one perpetrated by your own brother. The psychological impact is almost incomprehensible. She'll need years of therapy, support, and love to process what happened that night. The community of Fall City struggles with collective trauma and guilt. Neighbors ask themselves what they missed. Teachers review every interaction, searching for clues. Church members pray for understanding of how evil could hide so effectively among them. The family's house stands empty, a permanent reminder of October 21st. One teacher reflected, "I've replayed every conversation, every assignment, every moment. There must have been something we missed. But he was so good at seeming normal. That's what haunts me. How good he was at pretending." The perpetrator now resides in a maximum security juvenile facility until he turns 18, when he'll be transferred to adult prison. Reports from corrections officers describe him as a model inmate. Polite, quiet, following all rules. The same mask that fooled a community now serves him in confinement. This case forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about violence and deception. We want to believe we'd recognize danger, that evil announces itself. But what happens when it doesn't? When it does homework, attends church, and helps with dishes? When it smiles in family photos while planning annihilation? The warning signs, in retrospect, were subtle rather than obvious. The withdrawal from family activities, the unusual interest in firearms, the journaling about disconnection, the research into other family killers, individual red flags that only form a pattern when viewed together after tragedy has already struck. Experts emphasize the importance of taking juvenile statements about violence seriously, even from good kids. The tendency to dismiss concerning behavior because someone gets good grades or comes from a nice family can be literally deadly. As one investigator put it, "The best killers don't look like killers." Communities must balance vigilance with avoiding paranoia. Not every quiet teenager is planning violence. Not every interest in weapons indicates homicidal intent. But when multiple concerning behaviors combine, withdrawal, research into violence, access to weapons, expressions of disconnection, intervention becomes crucial. This case also highlights the importance of secure weapon storage. The teenager accessed his father's gun despite it being in a safe. He'd studied the combination through patient observation. Biometric locks, separate ammunition storage, and regular combination changes might have prevented this tragedy. For those who work with youth, teachers, counselors, coaches, this case underscores the need to look beyond surface performance. Academic excellence and good behavior can mask profound disturbance. Creating environments where young people feel safe expressing difficult emotions might help identify those at risk before they act. We must also confront our cultural obsession with the perfect family narrative. The pressure to appear happy and successful can prevent families from seeking help when needed. If we stigmatize struggle less, perhaps fewer people will feel compelled to maintain destructive facades. What can you do in your own community? Pay attention to the young people around you, not with suspicion but with genuine care. Notice changes in behavior. Take expressions of violence seriously. Secure weapons properly. Most importantly, create connections that make violence less likely. If this case teaches us anything, it's that evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it does algebra homework and helps with chores. Sometimes it sits in church pews and smiles in family photos. Our best defense isn't paranoia. It's connection, attention, and taking warning signs seriously even when they come from unexpected sources. The family murdered on October 21st, 2024, deserved better. They deserved to wake up on October 22nd. They deserved to see their children grow up, graduate, fall in love, have families of their own. Instead, they became statistics in one of the rarest and most disturbing types of crime, juvenile familicide. As we close this examination of an almost unthinkable crime, I want to leave you with this thought. In your community, in your family, who might be struggling behind a mask of normalcy? who might need help before desperation turns to violence. The life you save by paying attention might be your own or someone you love. Thank you for joining me for this difficult but important case. If you found this analysis valuable, please subscribe and share it with others who might benefit from these insights. In the comments, let me know what stood out most to you about this case. What questions do you still have? We'll explore another case that challenges our assumptions about violence and victimhood. Until then, stay vigilant, stay connected, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous threats come from the places we least expect.